Bob Perls, you're founder and president of New Mexico Open Primaries. Thanks for joining us this week.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Now, why is the issue of open primaries personally important to you? I want to start there.
Okay. I just resigned from the Department of State. I've been a U.S. diplomat for the last 6 years, and when you're abroad for 6 years talking about the American dream and how America is the beacon of democracy, you become very patriotic. But then when you get back to the U.S., like I have been now for 9 months, you look around and realize government's broken, people are unenthused, they're apathetic, and what's the root cause of our political dysfunction? And it led me to forming this nonprofit, New Mexico Open Primaries.
There is a bill in the legislature that would open up primaries so you didn't have to be a registered Democrat or Republican to vote in New Mexico primaries. That includes a constitutional amendment. Why do you think it's moving forward this year? It's not a new idea.
Well, it's not a new idea, and the work that my group is doing certainly is building on the partial success of people in the past. In the past, there have been some bills wanting to give parties the option of letting independents vote. Our philosophy and the philosophy of the 25 states that have open primaries is that these are public elections. The public elections are publicly funded and should be open to everybody. So this is the first bill that I'm aware of that restates our constitutional guarantees that says every eligible elector should be able to vote in every public election.
Now, if it passes the legislature, it would go to a vote in November. Voters could decide on this. So if we had open primaries, when people show up, are they going to have to take a Democrat or a Republican ballot? Are they going to have to choose, and will people know what they chose?
Good question. There's really a continuum of reform in the United States, so I'll step through the 3 steps. The sort of the most basic reform that would be enabled by this constitutional amendment would allow independents to go to the ballot and ask for either a Republican or a Democratic ballot. So there's still partisan primaries, and only the independents would have the option of choosing one or the other. Texas has a modified version of that where everybody registers on a nonpartisan basis and then on election day shows up and asks for a Democratic or Republican ballot. Then the second step in this reform that about 8 or 9 states have is when, under the scenario where basically anybody can choose a Republican or a Democratic ballot. And then the third step that 3 states have, Nebraska, California, and Washington, and that we'd love to see in New Mexico, is a nonpartisan, no labels approach. So people register on a nonpartisan basis, candidates run on a nonpartisan basis, and then the top 2 vote getters in the first round elections that currently we call primaries would go to the general election. Really, in just one election cycle in these 3 states, it has made all the elections much more competitive. It's increased voter participation, reduced voter apathy, and most importantly, the legislature has been functioning better because politicians have to reach out to a full spectrum of political belief and support and then compromise and problem solve once they're elected.
Now, you think that's the best idea for New Mexico? What would look differently if we had that system that you just mentioned?
I think the main thing that would look different is that we wouldn't have the 70% of House and Senate seats, for example, uncontested in the general election. You know, when you've got all these seats that are uncontested and all the decisions are made in the primaries, and typically only the far left and the far right typically participate in the primaries, you end up with polarized outcomes. You end up with candidates that tend to be further left and further right than most New Mexicans and most Americans. You end up with non-competitive elections because most people just tune into the general, and when they go to the ballot and see unopposed candidates 70% of the time, they check out and they think to themselves, why am I even here? So this would turn that around, and it would dynamically change the number of voters participating, more competitive elections, and hopefully make the legislature work better.
I did reach out to both the Democratic and Republican parties here in New Mexico. State Democratic Party said they're looking at the issue. They don't have an official stance yet on this legislation. Here's a statement we received from Republican Party of New Mexico spokesperson Tucker Keene. He said, quote, Republican nominees should represent the collective choice of Republican voters and only Republican voters. To hand over the nomination process to those who aren't registered Republican only cedes control of the Republican message to those who do not have the party's best interests at heart. If an independent wants to vote for a Republican, they're welcome to change their party registration or vote in the general election. So that's the stance from the party right now. You mentioned earlier elections are paid for by the taxpayers, by the general public, but you know, these parties are putting money in other ways beyond the election to support those candidates. Why not keep the system as it is?
Those are all good questions, and that's a very typical partisan response. So I've got three responses to his position. Number one, it violates the anti-donation clause of the Constitution of New Mexico that says that you can't use public dollars for private organizations. He's saying this is our party, it's a private party, but oh, by the way, we're using public dollars, which seems to go against most Republican lines of fiscal conservatism. So I would say, sir, if it's your private party, then pay for it. Then it can be your own private nomination party. But as long as you're taking my tax dollar as an independent and not allowing me to participate, that's wrong. And you can't decide who gets to vote. It's a public election. Second thing is, he said that it cedes the message. Well, there isn't a unified message by either the Democrats or the Republicans right now, and I would argue that they would broaden their tent, be more successful in the general, if they had independents able to vote in their partisan primaries. And we see that, for example, in New Hampshire coming up soon. The New Hampshire primary allows independents to vote. Chances are the outcomes of that are going to be different than the Iowa caucus outcomes because of independent engagement, and I would argue it probably will be more reflective of most Americans with the independent participation. And the last thing is, he said, change party registration. Well, why should you have to join a party to vote? Voting is guaranteed in the New Mexico Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Why is it his ability to say, no, you can't vote? That's just wrong.
What about sabotage? What about people from another party sabotaging a particular candidate?
You know, that's an old yarn that we hear all the time. There's not a single study, not a single piece of evidence that ever happens. In fact, the problem is just the opposite, that people aren't engaged and people aren't voting. The other argument is you can do that now. If somebody wants to sabotage, they just 30 days before the election change registration. Democrat could change to Republican, try to sabotage it. Really, do people have time to do that kind of thing? That's a typical argument coming out of a very partisan mind.
The Pew Research Center reported last year that 39% of Americans now identify as independents. That represents a big change over the past 70 years. What do you think the numbers look like here in New Mexico? Do we know how many people identify as independent regardless of how they're registered right now?
We do. It's 25% of all registered voters in New Mexico are either independent or minor parties. Both categories are excluded from primary elections. 70% of the elections are decided in the primary.
Now, lawmakers are going to be, the first step here is they're going to be looking at this legislation, potentially voting on it during the 2016 session. It seems like the system works for people who are already elected. Why would they vote for this legislation that you're supporting? Is it going to pass?
That's a great question. If it did pass, we would be the first state in the nation to pass a sweeping open primaries bill that wasn't started through citizen referendum. We don't have ballot initiative process here in New Mexico. So it is an uphill battle. We know it's the first year it's been introduced. We don't necessarily expect it to make it through the whole process, but it's an educational process for the voters and for the elected officials. There are a lot of elected officials who feel like it's anti-incumbent and anti-party. I would argue it's just the opposite, that the parties can compete in the marketplace of ideas. They can broaden their tent, broaden participation, and make them stronger. In independents, or rather incumbents, will actually enjoy serving more if they get to reach out to conservatives, liberals, libertarians, Greens from the very beginning, and then go up to the legislature, vote their conscience, because they've got to reach out to a broad section of political values. Right now, most of them are just worried about being, quote, primaried. Democrats are worried about being hit from the left in their primary, Republicans being hit from the right. Wouldn't it be a breath of fresh air for all of them to just be able to vote in a more reasonable way that's really in tune with 80–90% of where New Mexicans and Americans are.
Now, for folks who aren't familiar with the term being primaried, it's a very political term.
It is.
Someone from your party comes in and knocks you out in the primary, potentially with some funding from other folks.
Well, that's right, and being primaried is a new term, and it's happening because of all these gerrymandered safe seats. And gerrymandering, this is a good segue into independent districting, which we think is equally as important to open primaries, and is also being considered in this legislative session. You've got all these safe seats. You've got seats that only Republicans can win, seats that only Democrats can win, and guess who shaped those safe seats? The incumbents. So that is a raging conflict of interest that we hope to remove, because again, if we can create competitive elections, we reduce voter apathy, we increase voter engagement, and we create seats where, again, politicians have to reach out to everybody. And if that's their perspective, and for the next election they want to stay in office, they continue to listen to everybody, not just Republicans to the right, not just Democrats to the left.
Bob, so much to talk about here, but thank you, and we'll leave it right there for this week.
Thanks so much.